In this tutorial, we are going to talk about the functions. Functions, is actually a block of code which only runs when it is called, and functions are introduced for a specific task actually. So the bunch of functions is known as a program. So here right now we have only main functions here, where we can introduce a number of statements terminated by the semicolon. So these block of code actually are introduced in the body of the functions to perform some specific task. So like main functions, we can introduce or user-defined functions. Remember that this main function is the predefined function that exists in the C++ programming language. So to create a function, we need a return type like void or any other data type to be written before the name of the function. Just like here you can see before the main functions, which is integer. So integer data type is a return type, which actually this body, the body of the main function is returning a zero integer from this main function. So to return a value from the body of the function, it is necessary to declare an integer or any data type in return before the name of the function. Okay, so here we are gonna specify the name of the function like function. This is user-defined function with parentheses. So parentheses is actually the syntax and that should be included after specifying the name of the function. So before the name of the function there must be a space or multiple spaces, and there should be a return type here. So this is the header of the function that we have introduced. Now we need to introduce the body of the function. So for that we must include the curly braces, the opening and closing curly braces. So this is actually defining the body of the function. Now we can introduce a code here to be executed, okay, for some specific task. Okay, so for example, we want this function to print a message on the screen, okay, like this config channel is for computer lover. Okay, so this statement is terminated by the semicolon. So this is a single statement which we have included in the body of my function. We have actually defined a function with return type void. It means that this function return nothing with the name my function and parentheses, and there is a body with curly braces, just like the main function. Main function has return type integer and the name is main, while there are parentheses opening in curly and curly braces which define the body of the main functions. So in very similar way we have introduced our own function here. Okay, so another task is to call this function. So to call a function, we must specify the defined function. This is the IntelliSense window which help us that there is a user-defined function with name my function. So you press the tab button from the keyboard, okay, and then you can put the parentheses. So this function is defined down the main function, just below the main function. Okay, so let's see, and we want to build this program and see that we have called a function from the main function, and that function should perform the specific task, which is to print this message on the screen. Okay, build this. Okay, so it's give an error. You can also see in the panel below at the bottom here it says that my functions were not declared in this scope. So actually compiler says that this function is not defined and I don't know actually what is this. Is this a function? Is this a variable or anything else? So what happens actually, the C++ compiler looks for this message, this first line, because this is the hash preprocessor. So okay, the compiler actually include code from the IO stream and paste it here. Then it compiles the using namespace std. Then the compilation comes to the main function, and then the compilation comes to the my function. So compiler become confused that there is nothing like main function till this line. So the compilation actually becomes a top-down approach. It actually follows the top-down approach. So therefore the compiler will confuse and it will give an error, just like we have seen here that this function is not defined. So to avoid this error, we need to take this whole code from here, cut it here, and go ahead and paste it before the main functions. Okay, so what will happen now? The compilation will start from statement 1 and will compile the statement, then will come to the using namespace, and then will come to the my function, which is user defined function, and will compile this function as well. And the compiler will get information regarding this function that okay, my function is actually a user defined function and will store its in its information base. Then the compilation will come to the main function, and when it reaches to my function calling, so the compiler will now get the information from its base knowledge that okay, this is a function defined prior to the main function and it has a body definition. Okay, so it's actually this function works to print a message on the screen, and the compilation will comes to the end of the main function. Okay, so in this way we will see that compiler will generate no error. So let's actually compile and then let's see the execution. This comfy channel is for computer lovers, so actually our calling of our function works now. Okay, we can call this function again and again. Press the tab button, main function. Okay, so we have called our user defined function 3 times. So let's see, build and run this. So that function is actually printing that message on the screen without without space or without inserting any new line. So let's direct our function that insert a new line after printing the message. So now we will see a new line. So this is actually 3. So we have called 3 times user defined function and we have seen the execution of this statement 3 times on the screen. Okay, this is one of the way to introduce the definition of the function before main function. This part of the function is known header of the function. Okay, header of the function, which comprise the return type, name of the function, and parentheses. Okay, and this portion, the curly braces, is known as body of the function. Okay, so this is one of the way to introduce a user defined function before the main function. Okay, and another way to introduce a user defined function is to cut this, introduce the definition after the main function, and then just copy the header of the function and introduce it before the main function with terminator. Actually, this is called prototype. This is the prototype of the function which is now declared before the main function. So in this way, this is another way that the compiler will not be confused while during compilation. So compiler will compile the first statement as it is, okay, include the IO stream, then using this std, and then compile will be familiar here in this statement that okay, there is a function, user defined function, which is somewhere in this file. So and then the compilation will come to the main function as per the top down approach. Okay, so this is the another approach where we have introduced the prototype, and then the definition has been introduced after the main function. Okay, so when we build and run this, okay, it actually works perfectly, just like we have introduced this definition prior to the definition of the main function. Okay, so in this tutorial we have learned that how to create a user-defined function. There must be an return type. You must specify the name of the function, the parentheses, and then the curly braces to body of that function. And there must be a prototype of that function. If you want to introduce the definition after main function, then the prototype must be included before main function. Okay, and we have also discussed that how to call a function by just specifying the name of the function with parentheses and a terminator, putting a terminator in this way. So this is the whole tutorial about the introducing a function in C++. Thank you.